Hi, this is Dinarius here from Latinum, and in this video I'm going to be showing you something very interesting about the hexachordal solfeggio system, its elegance and its simplicity. One thing that I have heard a lot is that it's extremely complicated, but it isn't, and it makes the understanding of major and minor scales very, very easy. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to demonstrate to you. Firstly, we're going to look at the two hexachords that we are going to look at here. The hexachord that is on C, Sol, Fa, Ut, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Sol, Fa, Mi, Re, Ut. And the hexachord that is on G, Sol, Re, Ut, the hard hexachord, Ut, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Sol, Fa, Mi, Re, Ut. So far, so good. Now, in the mutated hexachord, which is what we're interested in, we use both of our hands. And it's very, very simple. Ut, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol. And then we are in the next hexachord up. That Sol is actually Ut. So the thumb is on A. Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La. And that's the scale. Ut, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La. La, Sol, Fa, Mi, La, Sol, Fa, Mi, Re, Ut. So we use our two hands. Now, why is this very, very important? Because we have two scales here. Ut, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol. This is the Scala di Sotto, the lower scale. And we have Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, the Scala di Sopra, the upper scale. And how it works is this. The lower scale, Ut, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Sol, Fa, Mi, La, Sol, Fa, Mi, Re, Ut, is the major scale. And the upper scale, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Sol, Fa, Mi, Re, is the minor scale. And this is all you need to know. And then you can start on any note. You sing that solfeggio, Mi, Fa, always a semitone, and you can play any scale. So you only have to learn one thing, and it really doesn't matter. Nowadays we have things like C major, E minor, G major, E minor, but all we have in the old system is this, C, Sol, Fa, Ut, di Sotto, and Si, Sol, Fa, Ut, di Sopra. Understanding that di Sopra is and di Sotto is major, C major. Then how do we move our way through the scale? The scale is moved through by Fa being sharpened to Mi. So we sing Ut, Re, Mi, Fa, and then we descend, we go up one tone. And we sing Ut, Re, Mi, Fa, Fa, Mi, La, Sol, Fa. And that brings us to G, Sol, Re, Ut, which is the next scale in the series of scales when we modulate. sol, fa, mi, la, sol, fa, mi, re, ut. Remembering that ut is only ever sung when it is the bottom note in a series, and it's usually only sung if it's the first note, and after that it's always sung as fa. So ut is not used a lot, it's just the starting point, the anchor, so to speak, of the solfeggio. So, ut, re, mi, fa, sol, re, mi, fa, sol, la, sol, fa, mi, la, sol, fa, mi, re, ut. Ut, re, mi, fa, sol, ut, re, mi, fa, sol, ut, re, mi, fa, sol, re, mi, fa, sol, la, sol, fa, mi, re, which is E minor. Re, mi, fa, sol, la, sol, fa, mi, re. But what it is actually is G, sol, re, ut, di Sotto, ut, re, mi, fa, sol, re, mi, fa, sol, la, sol, fa, mi, la, sol, fa, mi, re, ut. And G, sol, re, ut, di Sopra. Re, mi, fa, sol, la, sol, fa, mi, re. Noticing that the Scala di Sopra, the superior one, the upper one, always begins on re, and it is minor. So, re, mi, fa, sol, la, sol, fa, mi, re. It's extremely elegant, the system, and highly logical. And if you then are learning your cadences, this also comes in very, very useful because they are connected. So by in the series of fifths, you'll be learning the cadences in order. So it goes C, G, G, D, D, A, E, and so on as you're learning your cadences. So this organ has only been in my possession for a week, so I'm still learning how to use the pedals, and this is slowing me down. I was actually very lucky with this organ. It did not cost me very much at all, the princely sum of only 300, and it came up for sale on a site in the UK called Gumtree, a very good site if you want to buy a used musical instrument. And if you're interested in reed organs, often they come up there for free, and organs like this usually sell for quite a reasonable amount, a couple of thousand, but it was being sold for 300, and I saw it on the day it appeared, and I quickly emailed the chap, and he said, "I'm very sorry, but it's no longer available." And I thought, that's a pity, because it looked like it was in good condition. There was nothing wrong with it. And it was being sold by a nunnery. Anyway, it transpires that the organ had been moved to another church, and it was being used there as a replacement instrument because the church was undergoing renovations and the pipe organ was no longer accessible, and services were taking place in the church hall. And this was for 3 months. 3 months later, I had a little alert on Gumtree that I was alerted whenever a new organ was put up, and an alert popped up, and I had a look at it, and I looked at the picture. I thought, this looks very familiar, and the price was the same. So I contacted the chap, and he said, yes, it's the same organ. And I said, oh, is it available? He said, yes. So I started to make all the arrangements. The chap, Jan Pierce, had done some work to it as well. He'd opened up the back. He had replaced some of the lights here. The stop lights had gone. And he told me that he could see no sign of wear on the pedals at all, and virtually no sign of wear on the organ itself. It really doesn't look like it's ever been used. And he said that it had been connected with a MIDI console, with a MIDI cable, to a computer, and was being used to pipe organ sounds through the chapel in the nunnery, and no one had actually been playing it at all. So it's basically a new organ. Anyway, I now have it in my possession, and I am learning how to play it. I've also been teaching myself thorough bass, and I have discovered a really good book. I've gone through many. There's one that's useful by Artemis Nixon Johnson. He has 2 books on thorough bass. The other is by Frederick Lampa, a little-known English composer, and he composed an operetta, I think it was called The Dragon of Whatney, or Watley, I can't remember exactly. You can find it on YouTube. There are a couple of performances of this very obscure operetta. Anyway, he wrote this book on thorough bass, intended for beginners, and I found it very useful. At the moment, I'm just going through the cadences for the series of scales where Fa is sharpened to Mi, and the other series of scales where Mi is flattened to Fa. So Si, Sol, Fa, Ut, G, Sol, Re, Ut, Di, La, Sol, Re, A, La, Mi, Re, E, La, Mi, B, Mi, and F, Fa, Ut, diesis. And Mi flattened to Fa, F, Fa, Ut, B, Fa, E, La, Fa, A, La, Fa, D, La, Fa, G, Fa, and C, Fa. When you are doing the Fa, the 4th Fa, sharpened to Mi, which becomes the 7th Mi in the new scale. So Ut, Re, Mi, Fa. That's the, and then we go Fa, Mi, La, Sol, Fa, La, Sol, Fa. That Mi, Fa, Mi. What's happened is the Fa here has become Mi, and it's become the 7th Mi. In other words, the penultimate Mi, the Mi before the end of the scale. So Fa, Mi, La, Sol, Fa, La, Sol, Fa. Fa, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, Re, Mi, Fa. fa, mi, la, sol, fa, la, sol, fa. Singing fa at both ends of the scale, because then you can continue in either direction. If you sing fa for the top and the bottom note of the scale, then the scale can just continue on up and down the keyboard in the same manner. Ut, as I mentioned before, is the anchor point of the scale, is the anchor point of the single hexachords, but the mutated hexachord, we use ut for the first note as the anchor note, but then when we come back down again, we sing it as fa. We only sing it as ut the very first time. That I found in one of the medieval Latin treatises on plain song that I've been started to read. And because the basis of the system, of course, is the Latin plain song. So we have this very elegant system of two scales. And that's all you need to learn. And you know all of the scales, major and minor, simply by putting 5 fingers down and 5 fingers down. And that will serve, I think, as sufficient introduction to this extremely elegant system where you have two groups of scales, one where fa is sharpened to mi, and these are the scales with the sharp notes, and the other where mi is flattened to fa, and these are the scales with the flat notes. And, the series of sharps is si, sol, fa, ut, with the Scala di Sotto and the Scala di Sopra, C major and A minor. But you only have to remember one thing. You have to remember C, and then you just have to remember ut, re, mi, fa, sol, re, mi, fa, sol, la. And re, mi, fa, sol, la is the beginning of the Scala di Sopra. Re, mi, fa, sol, la, sol, fa, la, sol, fa, mi, re. That's without changing the notes at the upper end of the scale in the minor. Ut, re, mi, fa, sol, re, mi, fa, sol, la, sol, fa, mi, la, sol, fa, mi, re, ut. So that is that, really. It's, as I said before, extremely elegant. You just need your 5 fingers. You need to be practicing your... And then you practice your various finger exercises so that you learn these scales. And of course, the common chords are also based on... So those are the common chords. And then, when you do each scale, you also practice the common chords that go with it. I hope you found that useful. You can find me at Patreon if you want to support my work. Most of the material at Patreon is language-related work, but this is part of a series which I'm calling Mi Fa Tota Musica. That Mi Fa is the whole or the entirety of music. Bach uses that quote, it's from a medieval text, Mi Fa et Fa Mi est tota musica. Because if you understand the system, then you understand pretty much everything there is to understand, and it's very, very simple. Okay, you have some complicated names, C, Sol, Fa, Ut, G, Sol, Re, Ut, but you can just abbreviate it to C, G, D, A, E, B, F. But the reason they have these names is because each section of the scale, especially if you were dealing with a choir, had different names. So the names that are in the lower end, the middle, and the upper end were slightly different, so that you could determine which C was being spoken about within the range of normal human voice in the plain chant, which is what this scale, the gamut, was developed for choral singing. And so it doesn't go down below a certain point, although the scale does descend indefinitely. And we would just call it, if it's above this range, then it would be in alt, in the altitudo, in other words, in the upper range. And in English, we just say lower or below for the notes that are below gamma in the gamut. Anyway, it's getting dark, and you are seeing less and less of me as the hours tick by. So I hope you found that useful, and do consider supporting me at Patreon. Bye.